One evening, a young woman named Lorelei goes swimming at the artificial beach, but shortly after, her lifeless body is found on the shore. 18 hours earlier, Lorelei is helping a girl named Krista put on a festive dress. Krista is worried that the other children think she's strange. Lorelei assures the girl she's not strange at all and shows her an astrolabe given to her by a mysterious admirer. Meanwhile, the ship's captain and his first officer, Aaron Galt, are out for a run, while the captain's wife, Viondra, is conducting an inspection of her stewardesses. She scolds one of them, Jackie, when Lorelei's boyfriend calls out to them, unable to find her anywhere. Lorelei, however, is down on the lower deck, speaking with the warehouse chief, John Stokes, who has prepared a certain item at her request. After receiving it, she walks away. On the main deck of the spaceship, a ball is starting to celebrate the vessel's 51st year in flight. Elegantly dressed women and men in suits enjoy drinks and festivities. Lorelei meets her older, married sister, Emily, who is secretly seeing Galt. After their conversation, Lorelei heads to the beach. The captain and his wife greet the guests, where they are met by advisor Rose, who expresses displeasure with Galt's recent behavior. But the young man unexpectedly apologizes, easing all tensions. Later, all passengers watch footage from an old film in which the President of the United States urges humanity to reach for the stars and unveils Project Ascension, a ship that will travel for 100 years until it reaches a suitable planet. At that moment, Krista finds Lorelei's body and lets out a scream that alerts the entire ship to the tragedy. Meanwhile, on Earth, the son of the spaceship's chief engineer, Harris, begins a new day with his family when he is informed that something has happened to his father. He rushes to a clinic where he learns that someone had visited the old man. The visitor turns out to be an admirer of the engineer's work, trying to persuade Harris to make his father's great project public. But Harris refuses to speak on the matter. Back on Ascension, Dr. Juliette Bryce examines the dead body and finds strange marks on the girl's wrists. The captain puts Galt in charge of the investigation and announces the girl's death over the internal comm system. Krista is hospitalized. After giving her a sedative, the doctor confides in Galt that recent tests had shown Lorelei was beginning to suffer from depression. Galt reviews the security footage. Strangely, there is no visual record of Lorelei entering the beach area. The dead girl's sister, Emily, tells Galt that Lorelei had a boyfriend named James who worked on the lower deck. According to the ship's rules, they were not allowed to be together. Meanwhile, the doctor discovers that the girl had been physically close to someone shortly before her death. She had bruises on her arms and a bullet lodged in her palate, even though guns aren't supposed to exist on the ship. The captain suggests that the murder may have happened because the ship crossed the equator and can no longer return to Earth. He proposes a full search of the vessel, but Galt urges him not to cause a panic. Galt goes to the library where his colleague Ophelia recommends learning how to investigate by reading detective novels. She also gives him a video that Lorelei had watched last, but the box turns out to be empty. That night, Krista notices a seahorse pendant on the doctor's neck. Suddenly, she announces that the ship is going the wrong way because there's no life on Proxima, and she points out the correct direction. Meanwhile, James confesses to Galt that he saw Lorelei on the day of her death. However, she left abruptly after an argument, and they were not intimate that day. At the same time on the deck, Nora talks with Emily. The young girl is curious how other people choose their professions, since her mother insists she become a doctor. Emily shows her a star cluster that, according to Krista, harbors life because she intends to study it. Meanwhile, Galt encounters Krista, who tells him that Lorelei was afraid of someone. She also complains that the medicine clouds her mind. Sometimes she seems to know something strange, something no one else knows, but she can't understand what it is. At the same time, Nora asks to become an apprentice in the terraforming department. The captain orders James to be arrested. When Galt objects, the captain reminds him that the council could strip him of his rank, and Galt would go down with him. Nevertheless, Galt lets James go, telling him that he too never expected to rise from the lower deck when he was young. In truth, Galt begins tailing James and spots him on the beach. He catches up to him and asks for the tape Lorelei had hidden. Galt explains that there were no signs of a struggle at the scene and reveals a secret passage Lorelei had apparently used, explaining why she never appeared on any security footage. At that moment, Krista climbs to the observatory and, addressing the distant star cluster, demands that they stop watching her. On Earth, Harris's assistant urges him to inform the project director, Catherine Warren, about what's happening on the ship, but Harris fears this could jeopardize the entire mission and tarnish his father's legacy. He realizes the crew is in danger, but they've been in flight for 51 years and have grown used to it. Meanwhile, Galt and Officer Duke locate the spot where Lorelei was killed. They also uncover a book containing schematics for the water filtration system and blueprints for the navigation computer, both of which had recently malfunctioned. It becomes clear this was sabotage aimed at forcing the ship to return to Earth. Galt rushes to Emily and tells her the book he once gave Lorelei has been found. He begs her to destroy all his notes and gifts. If their connection is discovered, they're finished. At the same time, Duke and his team head to the lower decks, where Stokes instigates a fight. But then, an alarm blares. An intense radiation storm is approaching. Everyone is ordered to retreat to their capsules. As the passengers take shelter, James calls out to Nora to meet him at the beach. Meanwhile, the captain learns the shields are jammed and sends Galt and an electrician to fix them. Thanks to their efforts, the shields close in time. Nora and James are caught in a whirlpool, but this helps James find the video card Lorelei had hidden. They make it back to shore and race to the capsules. Meanwhile, the electrician confides in Galt that he saw Stokes give Lorelei a gun before she was killed. At the same time, Dr. Juliet puts Krista to bed and leaves her the seahorse pendant, saying it will protect her. Nora and James hide inside the radiation chamber as the captain instructs everyone to wear masks and wait out the storm. But as everyone seals themselves in their capsules, Krista sees a strange man in a yellow suit enter her room. After the storm passes and everyone is allowed to emerge, Stokes notices a footprint on the deck. Galt and Duke arrive and find a gun on him. He is immediately taken into custody. Meanwhile, Juliet looks for her necklace, and Krista says the man in yellow took it during the storm, but the doctor doesn't believe her. The captain begins interrogating Stokes. This is the first murder on Ascension, but Stokes insists he was framed. The captain threatens to exile him into space, a death sentence. Stokes replies that it wasn't Lorelei who feared someone feared her. Later, the captain and his wife prepare for the funeral. Viandra recalls the day they were announced as the perfect match. Her mother was disappointed. She saw no potential in him, but Viandra vowed to make him the ship's top political figure. Meanwhile, Krista brings Galt the astrolabe Lorelei gave her before her death and tells him about the unknown boy Lorelei once mentioned. Elsewhere, the door to Stokes' prison cell opens automatically. He escapes and retrieves the hidden gun from his quarters while the passengers bid farewell to Lorelei's body. Back on Earth, Director Warren arrives at the facility. She's furious and warns Harris not to hide anything from her again. Just then, Harris's assistant reports another problem. Stokes has taken Nora hostage and is demanding a fair trial. At the same time, Galt returns the astrolabe to the captain. It once belonged to the ship's original commander. The captain admits he was close to Lorelei but insists he didn't kill her. Then Stokes appears, holding Nora at gunpoint. He explains someone had been in the storage room and planted the weapon. He has found a fingerprint to prove it. Galt lunges at Stokes, freeing Nora. The captain escorts her to safety, while Galt and Stokes continue to fight. In the end, Stokes is ejected into space, but instead of dying instantly, he lands on an inflatable platform where a group of people takes him down. It becomes clear, the entire project is a simulation, a test to study whether generations of people can survive and thrive during an extended space voyage. Stokes is locked in a private cabin, treated as if he's lost his mind. Meanwhile, Warren informs Harris that she's sending her operative, Samantha Kruger, to assist him, much to his displeasure. At the same time aboard the ship, an unknown man writes a message on a wall of the lower deck. There is no future, and plants a bomb inside the generator. Harris, meanwhile, meets with Kruger and comments on her uncompromising nature and inability to stay silent, as noted in her file. He hands her a blue badge, which grants access only to personnel within the blue tier clearance. Back on Ascension, a group of young people is introduced to the terraforming chamber where all of Earth's seeds are preserved. A friend, noticing how Nora looks at James, advises her not to waste time, since partner assignments are determined by computer and feelings rarely match its verdicts. At that moment, a junior officer makes a disparaging remark about the workers. In response, James shoves him into the mud, sparking a fight, abruptly ended by a loud explosion. Harris and Kruger rush to the hangar concealing the spacecraft. Fortunately, there are no casualties, only the cooling system has been damaged. The captain discovers the message on the wall, confirming the explosion was intentional, but he chooses to conceal it. The advisor attempts to intimidate Viandra, claiming her husband's popularity has started to decline after the blast. He also informs her of the message on the wall. Meanwhile, Harris has no choice but to bring Kruger to the infirmary, where Stokes is being stabilized. The man believes he is in hell. Viandra tells her husband that someone in their inner circle is leaking information to the advisor. She suggests distracting the public by organizing a celebration. Outside the ship, Kruger demands access to surveillance footage. Back on Ascension, Galt descends to the lower decks to meet with the man in charge of the generators, Dwight. But Dwight panics, attacks the officer, and flees. Meanwhile, Kruger meets secretly with Warren to report the explosion that Harris is trying to cover up. Warren confesses that some of humanity's greatest discoveries were made aboard Ascension, as only the brightest minds were selected. With no escape from the ship, they focus solely on progress. However, it's clear Harris is hiding more than he admits. Kruger's mission is to find out what's really happening on the ship. Back on board, James tells Nora that the phrase, "there is no future," came from the lower decks, where the youth have lost faith in the promise of something better. Outside, Harris takes Kruger to the observation room and explains every detail about the passengers. Ascension is its own civilization, untouched by the temptations of the outside world. Meanwhile, Juliet complains to her daughter that she's lost her seahorse pendant. She also reminds her that she cannot love someone who isn't right for her. Simultaneously, Galt discovers that the explosion that killed his parents 20 years ago was very similar to the recent one. He begins to suspect that Dwight was involved in Lorelei's murder because Stokes wouldn't have known how to operate a gun. Later, James tells Galt that he wants to apply to the Officer Academy and hands him the video card Lorelei had hidden. He also reveals that Dwight is hiding on Deck 23. On the outside, officials also learn that a new bomb has been planted on that same deck. Since the previous blast, the area is no longer sealed, and sounds from the hangar can now be heard there, posing a risk of exposure. At that moment, Galt descends to the deck and recalls the explosion in which his mother shielded him with her body. Suddenly, Dwight ambushes him and activates the bomb's timer. Harris orders immediate evacuation. Fortunately, Galt manages to disarm the bomb, but Dwight dies in the process. Kruger blames Harris for the death, but he reminds her that the purpose of the project is to test human potential, not to protect them. Kruger launches her own investigation and discovers that several scientists involved in the Ascension project were either found dead or went missing in the 1960s. Meanwhile, Krista recalls Dr. Juliet's pendant, the very same one Harris has just gifted to his wife. Meanwhile, journalist Eva Marceau investigates the disappearance of gifted children during the 1960s and 70s. Strangely, all of them were once students of renowned scientists who also vanished or died during the same period. Harris confesses to Kruger that the gifted children were indeed taken aboard the ship under false pretenses. That group became known as the Class of 6370, and many of its members weren't volunteers. Meanwhile, annual vaccinations begin on Ascension, but Krista refuses the injection, claiming they're trying to kill her. Ophelia volunteers to take the shot in her place and immediately loses consciousness after receiving it. Kruger demands an explanation, but Harris insists it's just a routine immunization. Still, Kruger is disturbed. How did the girl know she'd be poisoned? Aboard the ship, Galt overhears Krista describing a dream in which someone switched the medicine. She insists all her dreams are real. The same man from her dream, she says, also spoke to Lorelei. Meanwhile, Viandra realizes that Jackie is having an affair with her husband. Outside the ship, Harris grows increasingly concerned about the girl who evaded the injection. Kruger meets with Eva, who reveals that her grandfather was one of the scientists supposedly killed, but his body was never found. Nor were the remains of many nuclear physicists. Adults, Eva says, may have had a choice, but children from the education program were simply abducted. That same day, Harris orders medicine to be added to Krista's milk, but the girl sees through the scheme and pours the drink out, staring directly into a surveillance camera she shouldn't even know exists. At the same time, Viandra fires Jackie, and Harris gives Kruger the complete roster of the Ascension crew. That evening, an unknown man chases Krista and tries to inject her by force, but something inexplicable happens. Krista seems to emit electricity, knocking the man back. He wounds himself and stains the girl's dress with his blood as she escapes. Harris is thrilled by the incident. His father had predicted something like this. Meanwhile, Kruger finds Ophelia's name on a list of gifted children who went missing in the 60s. On the ship, Galt takes Krista to Dr. Juliet and reports to the captain that Ophelia had never received vaccines before, so the injection was clearly intended for the girl. Outside, Kruger shares her discovery with Eva. Eva asks her to locate any belongings that might contain trace particles from those people for DNA analysis. Back on Ascension, the advisor denies Viandra the right to dismiss stewardesses, forcing Jackie to remain on board. At the same time, Galt convinces Krista to finally get the vaccine. During the process, Krista tells Dr. Bryce about her recent visions, the fall of the Twin Towers, a war in the desert, and tragedies at sea. She also claims she saw Dr. Bryce in the maintenance tunnel where Lorelei was murdered. The doctor gives the injection forcibly. Watching all this, Harris and his assistant are stunned. Krista has described real events that happened on Earth. Later, Dr. Bryce runs a blood analysis from Krista's dress and finds a match with one of the men on board, but the man is soon found dead in his cabin. Observing these events, Kruger concludes that Harris must have an accomplice on the ship, someone who eliminates threats. Meanwhile, Viandra and the captain confirm that Jackie had been spying for the advisor all along, and Krista, visiting the unconscious Ophelia, promises to lead everyone out of the maze they've been lost in. Meanwhile, it's lottery day aboard the ship, a ritual that allows one winning couple to have a child. Since population size must be strictly regulated, a new life can only begin after someone dies, and this time 3 people have passed away. Suddenly, Krista sees the ghost of Lorelai, who leads her to the main deck just as the lottery begins. Among the winners are Duke and Emily. At that exact moment, someone begins broadcasting a video, footage of Lorelai's intimate encounter with the captain. Gasps echo through the room as Krista begins to scream uncontrollably. Harris watches the scene unfold and notices that the girl reacted even before the footage started playing, as if she could see the future. He's stunned. His father had predicted such an ability might emerge after 3 generations. He called it morphic resonance. Krista is scheduled for examination in a new magnetic resonance scanner. Meanwhile, Viandra expresses her outrage to her husband. Nora tries to comfort James, who's devastated by his ex-girlfriend's betrayal. But James lashes out, declaring that everything here is rigged, and until they destroy the computer, they have no chance at happiness. Outside, Kruger steals the keys to Stokes' cell and files a scathing report on Harris, prompting Director Warren to arrive on site. On the ship, the advisor mocks the captain, and the captain loses control, lunging at him in a physical fight, likely ending his career for good. Meanwhile, Kruger sneaks into Stokes' cell, but he ambushes her. Jackie visits the captain, and he asks her to do him a small favor: deliver an envelope to the lower deck where the unrecognized children live. Emily tells Galt that their relationship is over, and he leaves. Jackie arrives at the lower deck and hands over the envelope, which contains extra food rations for an unregistered child. Meanwhile, Stokes, holding Kruger hostage, emerges outside. There, he learns the truth about Project Ascension. His mind begins to unravel. Kruger urges him to escape. At the same time, Duke learns that Galt had been in his home and realizes the rumors about his wife's affair with the officer are true. Outside, Stokes and Kruger find an exit, just as a heavily armed security team from TC Conglomerate, the project's funder, arrives. The director accuses Harris of concealing critical facts. Harris begs for a second chance, but it's in vain. Back on the ship, the council convenes. The advisor attempts to accuse the captain of having an illegitimate child. Just then, Krista once again sees Lorelai's ghost and follows her, unaware that ship systems are starting to shut down. An enraged Duke finds Galt on the beach and immediately attacks him. During the council meeting, it's revealed that the child in question is actually the son of the council leader, who had kept it a secret. Meanwhile, Stokes and Kruger make it to the surface. Overwhelmed, Stokes bursts into tears as he realizes all he has missed out on. And Krista, witnessing the officers fight, releases a powerful surge, knocking out all electrical systems on the ship. And outside, the director orders Harris to be detained, believing him responsible. But he shouts that it was Krista. She is the result of quantum evolution, the very purpose of the experiment. Meanwhile, Krista tells Galt that it was Lorelai who led him to the beach. Outside, Kruger and Stokes are spotted by a security guard. They team up to take him down, but Kruger is injured in the process. At the same time, Warren reinstates Harris and orders him to contain the emergency. Aboard the ship, the crew struggles to understand the origin of the massive energy wave. Harris shows Warren the starry light display inside the ship's nuclear reactor, an illusion ordered by his father to convince the crew they were in space. The lights are still on. Meanwhile, James picks up a weak television signal on Ascension. Outside, Stokes enters the store and is overwhelmed by the abundance. He breaks down emotionally. Remembering he came for medicine, he threatens the cashier to get it, unaware of the surveillance cameras watching him. Later, he and Kruger retreat to a motel where he treats her wound, and she, barely conscious, teaches him how to use a cell phone. Meanwhile, Harris realizes that the wave has disabled the signal dampener, and soon the ship will start picking up TV and other communications. James shows the broadcast to Dr. Bryce, who quickly sends him away with a weak excuse and shuts off the screen. It becomes clear he is Harris's accomplice. Back on Ascension, people begin collapsing from oxygen deprivation. Galt tells Emily about the strange energy wave on the beach, where Lorelai led Krista. James shares his suspicions with Nora, believing the doctor intentionally sent him away from the comm station. Meanwhile, outside, news of the convenience store robbery hits every channel. On the ship, more and more people lose consciousness. Galt volunteers for repair duty, and the captain joins him. Kruger meets with Eva and tells her everything. She plans to flee the country and seek asylum before exposing the truth about the project. On the ship, the situation worsens. James urges Viandra to take command. Her husband is on the lower decks, where there's no signal. She orders everyone placed in survival pods to buy time. Galt and the captain reach the scorched chamber and realize the air recycler can't be repaired in time. Harris suggests using the nuclear reactor to power the system, but Warren wants to use the chaos to her advantage and orders her agent to infiltrate the ship and extract Krista. The girl senses the danger and tells Dr. Bryce. The doctor contacts Harris, who tells him not to let TC take Krista under any circumstances. Meanwhile, Kraus and Ava return to the motel and find Stokes on the stairs, gazing at the moon he's never seen before. Ava reassures him that he's better off here than in the storage hold. Hearing this, Kraus realizes Ava betrayed them. She never mentioned where Stokes worked. Ava kills her. But Stokes manages to escape. On the ship, William and Galt realize that the air scrubbers are beyond repair. They'll need to purify the air manually. Dr. Bryce finds Krista in the terraforming chamber, which connects to tunnels, one of which is being used by Warren's operative. Krista accuses the man of murdering Lorelei. He admits it. Lorelei found out the mission was a lie, and he couldn't let her expose it. The captain contacts Viandra and says they will disperse lithium dioxide through the fans to restore oxygen. She orders all available power rerouted to the system. Just then, Warren's agent arrives. Dr. Bryce tries to stop him, but the brute easily shoves him aside and grabs Krista. Galt sees the ghost of Lorelei, who leads him to Krista. The oxygen level begins to rise, and people start to regain consciousness. Galt attacks the assailant. Krista unleashes her power again, causing a massive energy surge that vaporizes the enemy in a flash of light. Seeing this, Warren panics and tries to radio her agent. She moves closer to the platform's edge, and Harris seizes the moment, pushing her off. Galt is teleported to an unknown planet. The series received mixed reviews from viewers. While many criticized the characters for lacking the depth required for emotional storytelling, the overarching plotline was considered strong. As a result, the show's cancellation was met with disapproval by science fiction fans.